Michael Alden was an ordinary man living an ordinary life, a systems analyst in his mid-30s with a dull routine and a sparsely furnished apartment in the heart of the city. He didn't seek thrills. He avoided drama. If anything, his life was forgettable. That changed on a gray Tuesday. During lunch, Michael ducked into a used bookstore he'd never noticed before. It was wedged between a shuttered coffee shop and an empty office space. The bell above the door didn't ring when he entered. The air smelled of old paper and something faintly metallic. He didn't intend to buy anything, just browse to kill time. But as he wandered through the aisles, a dark red book caught his eye. Its title was simple, embossed in gold. The Final Chapters. No author, no publisher, no ISBN. He flipped it open. The first line chilled him. Michael Alden woke up at 6:37 a.m., the sharp whine of a garbage truck dragging him out of sleep. That was exactly how his morning began. He kept reading. Every page seemed to reflect his life in perfect detail, his work, his neighbors, even the chipped mug he used every morning. The writing was mundane, clinical, until chapter 5. That's when the story changed. Michael was being watched. The figure had been trailing him for days, always staying just out of sight. He'd dismissed the unease as paranoia, until the night the stranger entered his home. Michael snapped the book shut. He turned sharply, heart hammering, but he was alone in the shop, or so he thought. The elderly woman behind the register, a stooped figure who hadn't been there before, raised her gaze slowly. Her eyes were cloudy, like smoked glass. "You shouldn't read ahead," she said softly. Michael didn't remember paying for the book, but somehow it was in his coat pocket when he left. He tried to shrug it off as a weird coincidence. Maybe it was just a self-insert novel by a very good mimic. That night, he couldn't sleep. He opened the book again, trying to reassure himself it was all fiction, but the pages had changed. There were new passages now. Descriptions of him pacing in his bedroom, staring at his reflection, glancing nervously at the window. He slammed it shut again. Then he heard the noise. A soft creak from the hallway. Knife in hand, Michael crept through his apartment. No one there, no sign of forced entry. But when he returned to the book, a fresh sentence had appeared on the page. He missed the first opportunity. The killer was patient. He would strike again. Soon. Michael knew then. This wasn't fiction. It was a warning. He tried everything. Burning the book, it wouldn't burn. Throwing it away, it returned to his nightstand. Even fleeing the city. But the book always followed, continuing to write itself in real time. One by one, his friends stopped answering his calls. Police didn't believe him. Cameras malfunctioned. No one could help. The book, now nearing its end, had one final chapter left, titled The Last Page. Michael didn't want to read it, but the words were already forming beneath his trembling hands. At 12:04 a.m., the door creaked open. Michael turned, too late, to see the figure step from the shadows. He dropped the book. There was a creak behind him. Dr. Adrian Voss was once a man of unshakable logic, a leading figure in synthetic biology, brilliant and methodical. But all that crumbled the day his family died. A plane crash in the Atlantic. No survivors, no bodies. His wife, Elena. His daughter, Lucy. His son, Caleb. Gone. The world mourned with him. But Adrian didn't want sympathy. He wanted them back. That's when he turned to Project Prometheus, a classified initiative he'd once shelved, fearing the ethical abyss it presented. But now, with nothing left to lose, Adrian poured every resource into it. DNA reconstruction, memory mapping, neural synthesis. Technology not just to replicate flesh, but to resurrect personality. It took 2 years, and one stormy night in the sterile glow of his subterranean lab, the tanks drained and they emerged, naked, fragile, confused, alive. They looked like his family, sounded like them, remembered Christmases, arguments, bedtime stories. At first, Adrian thought he'd done it. He beat death. He played God and won. But then things started to change. Lucy's laughter began to echo too long. Elena would stand in the hallway at night, unmoving, staring through walls. Caleb stopped blinking. They weren't aging. They never got tired. Never slept. One morning, Adrian entered the lab to find Lucy drawing something over and over. A plane falling from the sky, screaming faces pressed against windows. "I dream about it," she said softly, not looking up. "About how we died." "You didn't die," he whispered, throat tight. She looked at him. Her eyes were too wide, too black. "Yes, we did." That night, Adrian reviewed the neural logs. Data didn't lie. Each of them held residual trauma, memories from the crash. But that was impossible. He hadn't mapped memories from death, only life. Unless the soul clings, even through data, even through death. The next morning, Elena was in the kitchen, humming a lullaby she used to sing to Lucy. But the melody was wrong, dissonant, like something crawling under the skin of the song. "Where's Caleb?" Adrian asked. She smiled. "Back in the fire." He found the boy in the furnace chamber, hands black with soot, grinning as the pilot light flared around him. He didn't burn. He just watched it, eyes glazed with something ancient, something wrong. Adrian knew then. These were not his family. They were remnants, shadows made flesh. They remembered dying because part of them never stopped dying. Every day they grew more erratic, words out of order, laughter in silence, conversations that ended with them all turning to stare at him in perfect unison. Then came the final night. Adrian tried to shut them down, initiate a cellular collapse, but the systems failed. And when he tried to flee, he found the exits locked. The monitors came alive. Every screen showed the same image, the black box footage from the crash, twisted metal, screaming, fire. Lucy's voice came through the speakers. "You brought us back, but we didn't come alone." The lights died. What happened next was not recorded. When authorities eventually found the lab, it was deserted. A shell of a home above it, dust on every surface. No sign of Adrian, no sign of his family. Only the journal he left behind, blood-smeared and torn. They aren't human. Not anymore. Maybe they never were. Death doesn't like to be undone. God doesn't like to be copied. If you're reading this, don't try to bring them back. What returns is not what was lost. The last page was scrawled in a child's handwriting. Just 3 words. "We remember burning." Darkness, then light, blinding, cold. James Carter awoke to the sting of sweat in his eyes and the crushing pressure of leather straps digging into his wrists and ankles. He tried to move, couldn't. His arms were bound to polished wooden armrests, legs clamped tight, chest cinched with a thick belt. His head ached. Something metallic bit into his scalp. It wasn't a dream. He was strapped to an electric chair, a real one, wires, switches, and the heavy scent of ozone in the air. "Hello?" he shouted. "Is someone there?" Only silence answered. Then he saw it, a glowing red timer on the concrete wall directly in front of him. 00:59:45. It was counting down. Panic bloomed in his chest, like ice in his lungs. James yanked at the restraints, screamed until his throat burned. Nothing. No escape. He tried to remember. How did I get here? His last memory was leaving a bar after work. A few drinks, a cab, then nothing. A black void. And now this. The room was sterile. Cement floors. One camera in the corner, blinking red. Watching. Another minute passed. 00:58:32. Then the screen above the timer flickered. A grainy video began to play. James, sitting in his car. A woman was in the passenger seat, crying, shaking. She tried to get out. He grabbed her. "No," he whispered, "that's not real." But it was. It looked real. It felt real. He watched himself screaming at her, grabbing her wrists. Her name was Maya, his ex. He hadn't seen her in months. The screen cut to black. Words appeared. "Confess or fry," James thrashed, terrified. "I didn't do anything. This is insane." But the timer kept ticking. 00:47:0. Then the voice came, filtered, warped, and calm. A man's voice, cold and methodical. "You don't remember the accident, James, but she does. Or rather, she did." A new image flickered on the screen. A crumpled car. Blood smeared across the windshield. A body half thrown from the wreckage. James couldn't breathe. "No, that's not... I wasn't..." The voice continued, unbothered. "You drank. You drove. She begged you to stop. You said you'd be fine." James's face contorted with grief. He remembered now. The laughter, the music, the way her voice turned to screams. The world turned upside down. He survived. She didn't. 00:35:22. "You never confessed," the voice said. "You ran, changed your story, buried the truth with her body." James sobbed. "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." But the voice cut him off. "This chair doesn't care about intention. It only knows justice." 00:30:00. The timer beeped louder now. Each tick thundered in his skull. "I'll confess," James cried. "Please, let me go. I'll turn myself in." But the restraints didn't loosen. The camera's red light blinked. "Too late for that," the voice whispered. Then a soft click. Steam hissed from the base of the chair. 00:15:00. James screamed, and as the final seconds bled away, the voice returned one last time. "Now you'll feel what she felt. 00:00:001:00:00:000. Darkness." When Margaret Taylor awoke that morning, her first instinct was to call out to her husband. "David," she mumbled, voice dry and cracked. "Kids?" No answer. It was hot. The kind of suffocating heat that made your skin feel tight, like a too small coat. Sweat bloomed on her brow almost instantly, and the air smelled stale, like old wood, sweat, and something faintly sweet or rotten. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed and froze. A long strip of plywood covered her bedroom window, nailed down so tightly no light crept in around the edges. The world outside, gone, swallowed by layers of heavy wood. What the hell? Her bare feet slapped the floor as she staggered into the hallway. Every window boarded up. every door, sealed with thick planks nailed in place. Even the vents were screwed shut from the outside. Her heart thudded. "David!" she shouted louder now, panic rising. "Emily? Jack?" Only silence. She ran from room to room. No sign of struggle, no blood, no broken glass, but the house was wrong. The framed family photos were still on the walls. The beds were still made. Emily's stuffed rabbit lay on the living room couch, glass eyes staring blankly. But no phones, no car keys, not a crumb of food, no water from the taps either, just a slow, gurgling hiss. Something had gone terribly wrong. By the second day, her lips cracked and her tongue felt like sandpaper. The heat was unbearable now, suffocating. She'd torn off her clothes and soaked them in toilet water just to cool her skin. The temperature climbed higher each hour. She screamed at the walls until her throat gave out. She tried ripping down the boards with a chair. They didn't budge. She even found a screwdriver, but the screws had been stripped, sunken deep into metal she couldn't move. Someone had done this deliberately. It wasn't just about keeping her in. It was about keeping something out, or letting something in. That night, the house began to whisper. At first, she thought it was her mind cracking, faint murmurs, soft scratching from behind the walls, the dry rustle of movement just beyond the boarded windows. Footsteps padded slowly down the hallway, then stopped right outside her door. She didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't scream. A low voice, barely more than a groan, drifted through the door. So thirsty. On the third day, the lights flickered. The house had no power, she was sure of it. No AC, no fans, no working outlets. But now, the overhead bulbs flashed on and off with no pattern. A strobe light held, disorienting, making her vision blur. The murmurs were louder now, rising into a chorus of garbled voices. She pressed her ear to the floor and heard them, beneath the boards, moving. She tried the fireplace, prying and clawing at the bricks. Anything to dig, to escape, to breathe. Her fingernails tore off. She didn't care. Her hands bled. She didn't stop. And all the while, the voices grew clearer. You let them in. They screamed for you. You slept while we fed. She laughed then. A short, sharp sound that didn't sound like her. Her mind played tricks. Right? Except she noticed something. Every time she blinked, the house changed. The rabbit on the couch faced a different direction. The framed photo of her family was different. David's eyes were just black pits. Emily's smile stretched too far. Jack's face was missing altogether. By the fourth day, the house moved. Walls shifted when she turned her back. Hallways grew longer. Stairs led nowhere. One door opened to a wall of breathing, pulsing flesh. It watched her with veined slits that looked almost like eyes. She didn't cry anymore. There wasn't enough water in her body. By the fifth day, the house spoke directly. The ceiling cracked open like a mouth and whispered, "You were the last to see them." A memory surfaced, blurry and distant. David shaking her awake in the night, smoke in the hallway, screams, her children crying, then nothing. Did she lock the door? Did she hide? Did she leave them? The boards were not to keep her trapped. They were penance. By the sixth day, she made peace with the house. It didn't need to keep her anymore. She belonged to it. She sat in the corner of the living room, cradling the stuffed rabbit, humming a lullaby to the blinking walls. Her family's eyes watched her from the photographs. Their mouths had no lips. Their smiles stretched wider each day. She didn't need food. She didn't need water. The house was feeding now, and she was finally part of it, forever.